And so now the reason you guys are all here to talk to and listen to Carl from Pest Natural Farms and Nick Burton here from Bootstrap Farmer.
Thank you. All right, we're doing it. Thank you so much for showing up. This was the first time we've ever done a live podcast with Bootstrap Farmer. You're a veteran, so you know what's up. I want to thank, and he's going to hate this, but I want to thank the ownership of Bootstrap Farmer. This was a significant investment for not only our company, but an investment in Paris, Texas. So it's especially nice that everybody showed up for this. I want to thank our PA, Joel, in the back, and Carrie, and our husbands and wives, who we have not seen in several weeks, as we turn this place from a children's clothing store into what you see here today. So thank you. We love you. Also, it goes without saying, we have a tremendous support staff at Bootstrap Farmer. Everybody that works here gives us a lot of air cover to do all of our crazy media stuff, and I sure appreciate them too. And again, thank you all for showing up. Thank you for supporting Carl at the farmers market and with your stores and everywhere you go. And I also want to give a round of applause to Leo and his crew at the warehouse, who gets everybody their packages. It's unbelievable. And before we start, this is the star of the show, but I want to tell you who wakes up that farm every single morning, and that's Kathy, who deserves a huge round of applause. Thank you so much for always welcoming me to your home. All right. So the purpose of tonight is for everybody that supports Carl and loves Carl like we do to learn a little bit more about the day-to-day and the year-round operation that it takes to get local food to your plates and into your stores that you can pass on to your customers. So as we're going throughout the season, please think about some questions to ask at the end. We also have some questions that other people wrote up. We're going to get going. So I have had a very unique privilege of documenting Carl's farm almost from the beginning, 4 or 5 years ago. We do not use any AI. We don't use any stock photos. Every single photo that you see here pretty much either was taken by Joel or myself over those years. And you can see it's pretty wild to look back at the growth rate that you've had. And some
and
of
the hair loss too. I saw that picture right
yeah,
there.
Yeah,
I saw some baldiness already.
We've both got a little grayer.
You should use some of that AI to fix some of that. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's super important to us that we tell the true story of what happens within local farmings, and Carl has been a great ambassador, not only for us, but for you locally and for farmers in general, as he shared his story over the years. I want to begin with, and this is a term I don't think the general public hears a lot, but it's kind of an industry term, and that's that you're a market gardener, which is different from what a traditional farmer is. So I'm going to read the true definition, and I'm going to have you elaborate on that a little bit. Market farmer is an agricultural entrepreneur focusing and growing directly and selling their produce, often specializing in fruits, vegetables, herbs, animal products to consumers. These farmers typically operate on a small to medium scale, and they utilize sustainable farming practices to maintain their land and crops. They sell their products through direct-to-consumer sales channels such as farmers markets, CSAs, which is a community-supported agriculture program, farm stands, and sometimes online marketplace or local food co-ops, and in your case, Paris grocery store and Paris bakery. So, you want to add to that?
I think that sums it up. It's a pretty well. It's a good definition of it.
I hope you expand later on. But.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the difference between a market farmer and the traditional crops as we drive around Northeast Texas? There's cotton, there's a lot of wheat, there's a lot of soybeans, there's a lot of cows, there's a lot of corn. If you build it, they may not come, and Carl certainly has. So this is what Carl does. This is one of our caterpillar tunnels that is at Carl's place. This is a leafy green production. Cabbage, more leafy greens, tomatoes, radishes, and you're going to see a whole host of pictures along the way of things that they offer. And Carl, I want you to talk a little bit about your homesteading aspect that is separate from the farm, separate from what you sell to everybody here.
Sure. Well, and just to remind everybody, I mean, that's kind of what we started out doing, was a homesteading, and then just a little entrepreneur in me said, well, we could probably make a living out of this, and or at least make a business out of it. So that's that's kind of what we did. And so we still, very much appreciate our farm for its ability to provide for us, but it is very much a family process still. Like the kids, we say as you already alluded to, Kathy wakes the farm up, I put it to bed. And so that includes make sure the chickens are put away at night, make sure the goats are put up. And so there's things that are not necessarily revenue generating, things that are just for us, and some of it's just for entertainment, like goats. We have a donkey.
You have geese.
Geese, yeah, they're just terrorizers. They do.
We can't film a whole lot of audio at the farm because
Yeah.
these geese honk incessantly, and it's real aggravating.
Yeah, I didn't even need an AR-15 until just I only bought one just for entertainment purposes, for hunting and stuff. But we really don't even need it because we have geese. The geese are like our basically our first line of defense at the farm. So they let you know when anything is happening at the farm. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Nick is here. He's trying to film. Honk, honk.
Yeah. They are obnoxiously loud. And so we have ducks, and so we'll harvest some duck eggs, of course, for selling. But just the whole thing it was all started off as just this whole homesteading, which homesteading is kind of the gateway drug into market farming, and some people just stay there, which is fine. And that might just be, your garden, and you have some chickens or something. But the goal of a homestead is that you're really not doing it to make revenue off of it. You're just providing for yourself. You're enjoying the pasture portraits. Maybe that's a horse or a donkey or a couple goats. But it's more enjoyable. You're producing off of it. Whereas the market farmer, you're doing it very intentional. You're doing mass production to provide for not just yourself. Maybe it's for your neighbors or for like us, for the community, an extended community. So,
Excellent. So where a lot of people met you and know you from is the farmers market. Like I said, I joked to you earlier, I went kind of carrot heavy on this one, but I know everybody loves them so much. This is your main revenue driver, pretty much. Can you walk us through just, not the process, because we're going to get there, but just, what you personally get out of the market and what your family gets out of the market, not from a sales revenue, but just the community building value of it.
Well, and we moved up from Fort Worth, and from a big city, it took us probably 2 years to get plugged in, right, Kathy? 2 years to get plugged in at Fort Worth. And when we moved up here, we moved up in like August, and then we started doing all this the following January. We were in the farmers market the first Saturday of March. I remember this in 2020. And we didn't know really anybody. And being up in the community every single week has just, it just indoctrinated us into the culture, threw us headlong into the community. And we look forward to that every Saturday. And Kathy's a people person, I'm a people person. As much as I really love to be on the farm, it's like my only day that I get a full day undisturbed to be at the farm by myself. But the farmer's market, is where we go to get, meet all our customers, and it's just a really fulfilling time, right? And, we say that until main market kicks in, which is in May, and then we got to get up at 5 or 6 to get ready for it. But right now it's nice because we get to get up, we get to sleep in and kind of take our time getting ready and show up by 10 o'clock. But it's really fulfilling. People ask us why, and Michael Bell from Dallas Half Acre Farm, he doesn't necessarily enjoy the farmer's market, and he just
doesn't even go to it.
Yeah,
he sells direct to consumer.
And to me, it's like that's where it's at. Like when we go out places, like we go to somewhere where we can find a farmer's market that are people are selling stuff that they've grown or created themselves, or artisans, whatever it is, breads and baked goods, but the produce especially too for us.
The other thing that's worth noting and different from when Wendy and I were at the market is you guys really were one of the drivers to turn Paris Farmers Market into a year-round situation instead of just April through October. And as why we're having this conversation here is because you being able to feed the community year-round just doesn't happen overnight. So let's get to the planning stages of this really starts early winter, so around Thanksgiving, I would imagine. So there's a lot of crop planning and selection. You're ordering your seeds. You're considering what the market is needing, and then you're also doing a lot of maintenance and preparing for the season, like if you have to order anything or if you have to get your seeds in, because sometimes seeds kind of go away.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so as you two are working on the farm, what are some of the things that you guys are planning for to get ready to even begin the first of the year?
You got to remember, I still say we don't know what we're doing. I mean, like and so every year it's like, oh, that's why people plan. Oh, that's why you order your seeds 6 months in advance because, like when COVID hit, we went to go order our spring seeds right before spring, and all the seeds were out, and so we had to scramble to get, to make ends meet, basically, to get the seeds that we needed. And so we're still learning a lot of that, the whole planning thing. It's like, most mature operations that have been doing this for 10 years, they know, hey, this crop is going on this bed on this date, or, within that time frame. And for us, it's like last week we had Gage, who's our main farmhand. Hey, we need 3 beds because we got to get these lettuces in the ground, and so we had to go scramble to make beds. So it's still a lot of shooting from the hip. We do a lot of, planning for like, hey, I think we're going to want, this many tomato plants this year, these varieties, but that's still so much trial and error, I guess, ultimately is what I'm saying. I mean, like learning tomatoes, I might be not even exaggerating when I say a gazillion types of tomato seeds, right. And so how do you, as a guy who's never farmed tomatoes, look through a magazine that's, half-inch thick, that's just tomato seeds?
And that's some of the fun stuff that when Carl and I do these podcasts, we're always talking to other farmers, so it's like this innate understanding that you look through any seed catalog. It's a very exciting day for farmers because there's a lot of new varieties. There's the old standby. Sometimes varieties go away, but having to decide what 3 carrots out of 400 or 500 different varieties is possible, because he's having to make decisions for everybody in this room as to what you're going to eat, what you're going to sell. And to some degree, you're putting a lot of trust in what you guys are doing to go, okay, he's picking something that's going to be a nice sweet carrot, or it's going to be a tomato that I can turn into paste, or a nice slicer, or whatever the case may be. So months in advance, but by the time your first tomatoes are going to hit, June?
A couple weeks, hopefully.
Last bit of May. Those decisions were made months ago. Those seed starts were started, sometime around Thanksgiving or Christmas, and they've been up potted, and there's been a lot of labor involved with trellising and getting the irrigation and things like that. So a tomato that may sell for $1 has gone months on the journey, not a miles journey, but just from ordering to planning to succession to getting to your place at the farmer's market. And that's the appreciation that everybody has in this room. I would love to see this thing packed up with everybody's eating at the fish fry right now, but it's just not going to happen. So that's why we're doing things like this. But let's get on to the early season prep. And I do want to say it's not just the seeds, but it's also getting the soil ready. It's using what we use, something called a silage tarp. Carl doesn't like to spray, he doesn't like to till. So he's putting a big tarp over these beds to suppress the weeds. Basically, it gets the weeds going. They die under the tarp. You use a broad fork more often than not to not really till the soil. And I'd like for you to talk about your methodology on that.
And so we've evolved from the traditional, like if you have a garden or a raised bed, we're probably closer to a raised bed now than a typical garden. But right now everybody's out tilling their gardens, and then they're putting their seeds in the ground, and then they start weeding. And so our goals, because we're doing this on an acre and a half, is that we don't want to weed, and we don't have the capacity. We don't want to throw chemicals on it to any herbicides. And so we moved to this low till, no till, permanent bed type situation. So our beds are in the ground, as this kind of picture shows here. They're raised off the ground, and there's walkways, and then they're loaded with compost and organic matter and organic fertilizers and things. And so we'll once we make those beds, and there's typically with a shovel, we'll till once, and then we form those beds. We add a bunch of compost, and then we'll soak them really wet. We'll soak them deep, rather, and then we cover them with a landscape fabric. We'll get it really dark, and then the weeds will germinate, kill them off, and now we've got a sterile bed. And we don't want to go in there and start tilling and tilthing and disturbing the soil, because now the weed seeds are going to come out because they're hidden below the topsoil, right? And so once we remove that plastic, we've got a sterile bed, and then we can plant into it. Now we still, as even that picture shows, you can still see a few rogue pieces of grass in there that somebody missed.
happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that person got fired. Yeah.
So, and listen, as we're talking about this, when we defined the market gardener, it was they grow in sustainable methods. The very first bed of crops that you're growing
Yeah.
for everybody in this room is 50 feet from your front door where your kids and your family live.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about knowing your farmer, knowing their practices, this is not only good for you, not only good for the land, but it goes to this is what you're surrounding your whole family with. So of course we don't want to spray or anything like that. So moving into the early part of the year, so I'm thinking we're talking about January, February right now. We're seed starting indoors. You're seed starting in a greenhouse. Before we get to the rest, I want you to talk a little bit about what succession planting means, especially for you in your leafy green production, and how everybody here gets their lettuce in the stores.
And when we first started, I've heard that term succession planting, but until we started having some customers, namely even the bakery, when we first started getting going with getting our feet wet and understanding this, like, you can't just sell something 1 week or for 3 weeks. It's like, if you want, the recurring business and you want to be able to provide your food more than just, sell your sweet corn in 2 weeks of June, you've got to be able to have succession plantings and crops. And so to me, that was kind of revolutionary. I was like, well, so that means if I want to pick every week, that means I need to be planting every week. And that means then I need to be seeding, doing my starts every week. And so we actually, not quite every week, but every 2 weeks we do like our lettuces. So we have a various few different lettuces that we start. And so as that picture on the left there shows, we start them in 72 cell trays in a little, I think it's a 10 by 24 grow room that we have. It's climate controlled. And we start all our lettuce seeds from there, and almost all our starts actually. And when the weather's cooperative and nice, on the shoulder seasons, we can start them outside directly. We'll do some direct seeding. And so then we will propagate them in the grow room and then feed them and take care of them, nurture them. And then when we think they're ready to go out, then we transplant them. So we're on a kind of every 2 weeks cadence cycle with our lettuces. So we put a seed in the tray in 2 weeks, and then that tray will probably, or those seeds will probably stay in that tray or plants for about a month, and then they'll get transplanted. But, prior to that, so that week that we're, we're seeding maybe our lettuces, then we're also taking the previous plantings and transplanting those out. So, every week or every other week we're either seeding or transplanting, and then typically about a month outdoor, and we're harvesting.
And the good thing for us is he keeps needing more greenhouses. So another way to think of succession planting is, Kit, let's say you order 24 heads a week and you come and buy a couple and you guys come and buy a couple of bags. If he planted all of the lettuce all at once, he would run out all at once and he would have a bunch of food waste. So he has to plant some here and he has to plant some here and in this new greenhouse and this new bed. So it's mitigating. You have to have all this extra space and all these extra beds in order to accommodate that, plus the carrots, plus the herbs, plus the flowers and everything else that you have going on. So you may start with just one little plot, but it quickly adds up when you start building up that demand.
Yeah, and we still screw up. Especially even though we have a climate controlled room, it's not the best from airflow. And so when we have winter storms and it's super wet out, it's really difficult to keep things. And so there's been, weeks where we're like, what are we going to do? We're not going to have lettuce for Kit. We're not going to, that's usually a thing. Like, where are we going to get the romaine from? Oh, go check that bed. Go, and so there's always this, like, we're trying to figure out where the next crop is coming from because we're still immature and, and then you can't, Texas is wild. Between critters and the climate, it's just, and so we find ourselves always overplanting because I'd rather deal with an abundance than a shortage.
Well, and this time of year, it holds over. It's not like you don't have to pick it if you don't need it, so you can flex a little bit. So everybody, Kit is in the room. Kit owns Paris Bakery. You would be shocked about how often your name comes up in this podcast.
On the podcast,
I'm glad you're here for this one on the first live.
I can't make fun of him on this one though. Now he's here.
I can't believe he doesn't have his do-rag on. So when it comes to soil prep, this is also the time that you're taking that silage tarp off, and now you have to do something with the bed to get it ready for the transplants or sometimes the direct seeding.
And our standard kind of approach is that, basically we use a software tool called Trello, and on there we just say, go prep the bed. But behind the scene, what that means is that Gage and Kathy and whoever else might be on the farm that day is going to go remove the plastic. They're going to, or landscape fabric. They're going to amend it with compost, with our granulated chicken manure, and any other amendments that we might need to, maybe increase or decrease the pH balance, which is we're still trying to figure all that out. And then we do a tilth. A tilth is not a till, but it's basically just kind of brushing the top 1.5 inches. It's kind of mixing in those amendments on the top, just like I said, inch and a half, and that adds a little fluff to it.
Which is something else you have to order and have on hand ready to go.
Right, another tool that you have to have, and then we have I don't want to call it a packer. It's slipping my mind what the tool is called, but basically a wheel or a press, if you will, just to kind of add a little compaction, which is what you're trying to avoid, but this just keeps it so the soil just doesn't wash away, right? And so at the end, it looks like a beautiful, pristine bed that is just ready to be planted into. And at that point, then we'll run a dibbler. Two ways. A dibbler is like this tool, walk-behind tool. All our tools are hand tools, and it's got little spikes. It looks like something from the 80s, the 80s rock band, those metal spikes, or maybe your dog has those, And so it's got these dibblers on it, and so it's got it's like a 18-inch wheel probably, and then we can just walk that down the bed, and that'll mark our holes, and that's where they'll transplant into. Otherwise, we'll do a direct sow or a direct seeding into it if we're able to do that. So.
We're going to talk about seasonal extension a couple of times during this, but this is also when you're going to start employing frost blankets on some of your early season stuff. And so we're just now coming out of our weird weather in which we'll have unexpected frost, and then it'll be hot, and then it'll be raining, and it'll be this and that. So if you can talk a little bit about frost blankets.
Yeah, it's a love-hate topic, honestly.
You'll be all right.
I'm grateful that we have frost blankets, but when it's this time of year and you've got everything growing outside, and all of a sudden the weatherman tells you frost is coming, it's like it makes everything. Your blood just starts boiling because you've got everything put away. These frost blankets are, we have almost an acre. So imagine how difficult is it for you to get up and make your bed in the morning? To put a single sheet on your bed. Now you have an acre. We don't have quite an acre of frost blankets, but a lot. Probably enough to cover half of it, or at least a third of it. And so we have to go unfold, all of these frost blankets. We have to then, first we have to go put in a mechanism to support the frost blankets, hoops, and then it's a multi. And then imagine it's rainy. Then imagine it's cold, and worst case it's windy. And now you're off flying, without a license in the sky with frost blankets because you're just, it's so. There's been horror stories about them, and but at the same time they're saving your crop. And so that's why I say it's a love-hate thing. Like I love the fact that we have them, but I hate the fact that we have to use them because it's always a pain. And then the next morning you come out, and of course it likely rained, and so now they're sitting and they're full of mud. It's like, how do you wash a frost blanket? By the way, like you need a
car wash. Take it to the car wash.
Invent a frost blanket machine, washing machine, or something.
We got enough on our plate. Don't worry about it.
So, but they're good. The kids have found some entertainment. And one year we had bought a ton of them. I remember because we had all our tomatoes. This is before we had indoor growing, and our tomatoes were probably 3.5 feet tall, strung up outdoor trellis, and we had got that April frost a couple of years ago. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I called you, and I'm like, I need as many frost blankets as I can get today. And we went and strung these things up, and we had like tents. You could literally walk underneath these things. The kids just loved it because it was like this maze. We had like we had about 7 rows of tomatoes, and it was just all covered in frost blankets, and then we had plastic over all of that.
So here's the kicker. This was all in a greenhouse that he didn't have his plastic on, which all could have been avoided.
Yeah. Could have been, yeah.
Let's talk about even that early in the year, you're still having to irrigate and deal with stuff, and this irrigation doesn't like to be ran and then have a frost that night. So how are you covering that?
With the actual, how are we dealing with?
Like you still have to water in the wintertime.
And it depends. If it's a light frost, we we'll just leave it sit out there. That little it's actually in the wrong spot. It's actually in a temporary spot there, but that's a piece of PVC. And so we'll cover our drip lines with that, the main line at least. But we'll open up the ends on all of the systems and just kind of let the expansion happen naturally and flow out. If it's going to be really, really hard, like we're down to the double digits, then we'll take extreme measures and we'll take all the sprinklers out, and especially all of the valves, the timers and everything. And it still doesn't matter. I mean, somebody is, and I'm not blaming anybody because I do it too, but you know how many sprinkler heads or like just the handheld hose ends? I mean, I bet I've spent more money on that than I have on greenhouses, because we probably go through, I bet, 15 to 20 of those things a year. And it doesn't matter if you buy a $30 garden hose end or a $5 one. So,
well, look, that's the other thing. You have to have all this stuff for your farming, but you also have to have like a plumbing and electrical store on site, so you don't have to drive to Home Depot every time a bird flies by.
Yeah.
So we're getting into the growing season now. So about this time of year in which the market, how many weeks before the market opens up?
2.
Yeah. So like everything is ready to go. We also are going to go from, like you said, from 11 o'clock to 1 to 9 o'clock to 1, 8 to 1.
Yeah.
We got out just in time. All right. So your daily routines are picking up. Not that you're not busy in the wintertime, but with this looming deadline, kits ordering, there's more rain, there's more sun, there's more planting. What does like a typical day look like from morning till dusk?
Yeah, this time of year,
7 days a week, mind you.
Yeah. Well, and so we're kind of on a pretty good routine. And Monday through Wednesdays are like our projects. So that's like when we're out there, Kathy's primarily pruning. So she like runs the tomatoes. She's constantly stringing those tomatoes up every week. So she'll spend maybe this time of year once every other week. Probably she's going to have to start doing it every week now. So that's all she'll do, like for one whole day every week, like on a Monday. And then and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are all project days. Like what can we get in the ground? What do we need to seed? What irrigation do we need to fix? What's broken, fix it. Getting shade cloths on, taking shade cloths off. Like this time of year right now, like today we took the shade cloth off, and then by the afternoon we had to put it on because the starts, they can't tolerate that heat, especially in some of our lower tunnels. And so we're managing some of that. And again, so just in general, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are all project days, and Thursday and Fridays are just heavy harvest days. So people always want to come out to the farm, or like any day but Thursdays and Fridays, because like it's just everybody's running, till from 8 to 5, getting everything ready.
And so one giant piece of infrastructure that you started with, which I was so glad to see, was a walk-in cooler, which means he can start harvesting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and ready to get, because you can't harvest everything in one day. It's just not possible. But you do have to. A little dust bunny right there.
I wanted to catch it.
We didn't clean up. But yeah, you have to have a place to put this, and it has to be fresh. And mind you, if he's harvesting on Wednesday and he's delivering to everybody here on Friday or Saturday, that's still days and days and days fresher than you would get on anything from any grocery store.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it's actually, within, we really strive to be like within 24 hours. It's not possible now as big as we are, which we're not really that big, but it's just not possible. But Thursdays is when we start, usually with our lettuces, but like everything else is, if it's a root crop, it'll definitely be on a Thursday. And some of this has to do with weather. Like if it's going to be 30 degrees and nasty out on Friday, or even Thursday, we would do it on Wednesday. But we don't like to go beyond that, because that lettuce needs to be, we pride ourselves on that. We don't want to, if our food ever looks like a grocery store, then we're doing something wrong, and so it's a delicate balance. But the walk-in cooler does provide that. I remember there was many times that we were just like, our fridges were packed. It's like, putting stuff next to the air conditioner, like everything you can do to kind of keep stuff ready. And we were harvesting, when we first started, I remember being on ladders at midnight picking tomatoes, because we didn't have this trellising system. And so I was up, 12 feet in the air on a ladder at midnight, and I'm like, got to get these tomatoes picked for people. They got to be fresh, and I'm like, is Kit really going to notice that I picked these things, 4 hours before? Yeah.
That should have been a $20 tomato.
Yeah. So, we're learning, and plus you just don't know. I mean, we're none of us have been, well, my aunt, she's been in the restaurant business for 50 years, but we don't know all of how food stores, and it's in different climates, I mean, like we have different results in your walk-in cooler versus what we have at the Paris grocery store versus what we have in our walk-in cooler versus some of the other stores. And so that's the ultimate goal, is that we just want to be extremely fresh as possible so that we know that the shelf life will be, regardless of the fluctuating environments it's going to be, and will be good.
This is also the time of year that the weeds are going full tilt. So
yeah, weeds this year are actually my friend. The aphids are not, but the weeds are all right, but they still are a nuisance. And we're getting better. This is probably so far the best year we've had for weed control, and a lot of it's the practice. So our practice that we use, but like the new tunnel, the most recent tunnel that we put up, that's the first time we use those beds. And those beds, then the first time you use them, are extremely weedy. And we probably get halfway through a season or a crop, a bed. Some of our beds we turn over 30 to 60 days. And halfway through some of them, I'm just like, let's just burn it. Like, let's just start over. Like, we'll just use it as a cover crop, even though it was all lettuce. I'm like, just wipe it out and start over, because there's too much weeds. Like, we can't send somebody in there all day to go weed it. It's just like, economically, it doesn't make any sense. So sometimes we do that, but it's not really that often. The other option is that we go harvest it, and then somebody sits and picks through the wash machine, picks all the grass out of it. So,
which is more labor. Or these weeds are taking up water and nutrients that he's also having to pay money for, that's also suppressing the growth of what you're trying to grow.
Well, and what I've realized this year, this has been the big epiphany, is that weeds are harboring all the pests.
Yeah. Let's talk about pests.
No.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah.
So this is the time of year that you start seeing more and more. You don't like to spray. You do use insect netting on. I don't know if you can see it in that picture. It's a little tiny, but about halfway up, you see this line, and that is where Carl has a roll-up side to let ventilation in and kind of help cool down the greenhouse. It comes in from the bottom, and you can see that vent on top, and it's that constant air circulation that keeps it from getting too hot. But there's an insect netting on there that basically keeps out a lot of the pests. That door's open right there in that picture, and that doesn't help. But
There's always a door open.
But it does happen. So how do you deal with some of these insects?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest thing, like this year, is aphids. And fortunately, they're really easy to take care of, but they're just so fast and the life cycle so quick. And like every morning, I'll go out, and it's only on certain crops. So like right now, it's all our pepper seedlings are just getting hit. And we just refuse to use some hard synthetics, any real sprays, chemicals. So we'll use like Castile soap, neem oil, and some Pyganic, which is another organic one. But this year I learned the hard way: you can't spray Pyganic on your baby pepper plants; it burns them all. It's called phototoxic. Say it for me.
Phototoxicity. I was gonna hang out to dry.
Yeah. Basically, whatever, and it's derived from a botanical source, but that particular source, when the sun hits it, will cause the plant basically to just keel over and die. And I didn't know that. I mean, it's an organic thing, and so and some of our seeds are like $1 a seed, right? And we had, dozens of trays of these things, and these are, our peppers that we will grow from now until until we stop heating the greenhouses, and so because I was just after the aphids this year on those pepper plants. And so now it's like, I understand, so we're using Castile soap and neem oil, and I'm out there, probably right now, like tonight I'll go after this, that's where I'm heading, put on my backpack sprayer, and I'll go spray for aphids. But in the morning, this morning, I was out there just with my hands. You can just wipe them off, right? They smear right off and everything, but it's a constant thing. You cannot let off the throttle when you're using organic methods, and that's one thing that people just don't understand, really. It's like the big farmers, and I grew up on a big ag farm. It wasn't that big, but conventional farm, we could say. And we just go out there and we spray like once, maybe twice a year. Powerful stuff that you would not have to, ever go back out there. And I have to do this probably 3 to 4 times a week, and it's usually between 9 and midnight.
Well, and here's the other thing, and I keep going back to this theme because these are the phone calls that we get, right? It's like there's 6,000 other Carls out there that needs these, not chemicals, but these controls for these bugs. And if they're not ready when he first sees the first sign, by the time he remembers to order it, and then it doesn't get lost in shipping, and it finally gets there from these companies, it's too late because 3 or 4 cycles of bugs have come. They've already laid eggs. It's just murder to get rid of this stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So the next thing, and this is a good illustration right here. So in the middle picture, there's some microgreens. On the left, there's some lettuce. On the right, there's some tomatoes. We're looking at a 10-day crop, a 45-day crop, and a 90-day crop that's going to produce year-round. And we are managing different harvesting times and grow times. So you guys are harvesting 3-4 days a week, everything that needs a different time. How are you guys kind of thinking about your day-to-day? This is going to get harvested first. This is going to get harvested last. Oh, we forgot about this pile of stuff we need to take care of over here. And even some of the prep times. So harvesting microgreens, not as bad as root crops in which you have to wash the fire out of it.
Right. Yeah, and it depends on week to week and season to season. The microgreens are set. I mean, we know that Thursdays and Fridays we're harvesting, and then we're reseeding those the same day. Lettuces, the stuff that is more prone to wilt or not have as long a shelf life, we want to get that, as near to market, as possible. And so that's why we'll try to save the lettuces and all the really soft leafy greens, for last. Carrots, if we have a bunch of carrots, we'll try to get them out on Wednesday. They can sit in the cooler, for a week and multiple weeks probably. Actually, we've never had that ability actually to keep carrots that long. But
look, if you've ever bought carrots from the store, these things have been pulled sometimes months in advance.
Yeah.
They're called storage crops for a reason.
Right. Yeah.
Just get some water, honey.
Yeah, man.
So now we're getting into the summer. So June, July, August, dead of the heat around here for us. So you mentioned earlier that most of your tools are by hand. You guys are also harvesting by hand. You guys don't have any harvesters or anything like that. You're washing and packaging by hand. All of this, in addition to everything we're talking about, is adding labor and your propensity to harvest up to the last minute for maximum freshness is all adding to some of those headaches. There's also the logistics of packaging. Why don't you explain the wash pack station that you guys have?
Yeah, and it's in transition right now, but and only because the wonderful Texas Department of Agriculture gave us a visit last year, and so they were very kind to us, and they said, "You're not on our radar yet, but you're making headway." So when we
Quit
come
doing
out,
podcasts.
yeah, stop doing podcasts and making your name known. But he said, when we come out next year, you'll probably have to do this, this, and this, and this. So we've been upgrading some things. We have our root washing table. I think I said that right. Like where we'll throw our carrots and radishes and potatoes on. It's outlined with wood, and then it has a fancy material on top, so the produce doesn't fall through. Well, apparently you can't have. It makes sense, but we can't sanitize that thoroughly, so we have to. Which literally today we just had a table made for all of that to replace that. So we're actually, that one picture on the left kind of shows a good example of a root washing table that we have.
And so it sounds like you're moving to something like it's going to have a 3-wash sink and stainless.
We do have that.
Stainless steel,
Yeah.
Basically.
Yep. In fact, yeah. Yeah. We just got that sink actually, and Kit was actually with when we went and got that, the sink. So, but now, so we had a big dry rack that had fans, typical things that if you went up to YouTube and you looked up, leafy green wash and pack station, you would see what we use, which is, 3 fans on top, and then there's a wire mesh net.
What are the fans for?
Fans are drying the lettuces, they're leafy greens. But it is framed in wood. And so we've actually replaced that now with a spinner, a commercial spinner, if you will. And then from there, we don't even have to put under the fans. We can just literally bag now. So that has saved a lot of time, and we're more compliant. But it's just little things you don't know about, I mean, and you just don't think that there's much to it, right? But there is a seriousness to it, and so we want to be proactive, which is why we're investing in a new wash and pack area. But what we had worked, and it was sufficient. But we're moving up.
So the picture on the right, this is pretty typical market setup for you guys. Now I want everybody here to count the number of individual vegetables, and then count the number of individual packages that all had to be packaged by hand and then put in those crates. The crates come out of the coolers, they're loaded into the van, it's drove to the market, it's then unpacked, and then all packed back again. When Wendy and I were at the market, I mean, it is the most work on a Saturday after working with everything that he's been telling you for the last however long we've been here. It's like, oh, it's the weekend. It's not. It's not. This is where all of the work actually happens. Oh, and you have to be in a good mood because everybody's coming to buy from you.
And smile. Yeah. Yep. There is that. And then on top of that, it never fails. Every week is like you're setting up at 6:45 a.m. and somebody's there standing in line waiting for you to grab all their produce. It's like, and not only that, they have a $100 bill. It's like, buddy, like we have $60 in change for you. So can you buy a few more things? Yeah.
Let's go get a coffee.
Yeah. But all our customers are very kind and gracious, but it is true. I mean, it's always like that, and we love the fact that we have people waiting for us to get set up. I mean, it's an honor. We're never ready in time, even though like right now the market doesn't open till 11. We get there try to be there at 10, and there's people waiting for us typically, right? And so it's a good thing.
I am.
Yeah. But we love it. It's a good thing, and it's just time goes quick. We like to socialize. We like our customers. We love our customers, and so it's not a hassle. But it's a lot of work. When we get done, for some reason, we get home, it's like we are exhausted. I mean, it's like, I don't know what it is. Like, we can work all day at the farm. I say we, I mean, more Kathy and Gage, but like they can work all day at the farm, but yet Saturdays we can come home at 1 or 1:30, and it's like.
Well, you're playing air traffic controller. She's having to deal with you. It's got to be a lot of work. Yeah. And then you have every personality under the sun coming and asking likely the same questions over and over again, just a different face and a different name. You have your regulars that you're trying to take care of. You have somebody new that you want them to have the very best experience their first time at the market. You have stray dogs. You have banjos. You have kids. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff at the market that you're just constantly processing.
That's what we figured it is. It's got to be the message.
I loved it, but it was exhausting.
Yeah. So. It's just you receive so many messages, and there's so much involvement. It's exhausting, even though it's physically not demanding.
And inevitably, there's somebody coming up to tell you how they would do it. That's fun.
Yeah.
So we're getting into fall and winter now at this point. This is Gothic High Tunnel that's at Carl's place, and you can see in the back this is some of the stuff that he was doing. Well, yeah, I guess you're still doing it. The field-grown crops, a lot of extra work. And then if you look to this picture to the left, nowadays you'll see more tunnels if you go out to his place. Yeah. But you're extending the season, as in it's starting to get colder again, starting to get frost again. Now you have more and more stuff undercover, which means you're able to continue to go to the market for a longer period of time. You're continuing to take things to the restaurant. You're also probably shifting over to some more cold hardy crops, and you're making that seasonal adjustment in the variety. So what does it mean to eat seasonally? People come up, they want the freshness of the fresh. That means they're likely not to get tomatoes after after the first frost.
Yeah. What was the question?
You need a break?
No, I heard you talking. I just didn't actually hear where the question mark was.
I get that a lot. Just the fact that you're going to run out of kale in the summer because it's not going to grow. You're going to shift that crop. You're not going to have broccoli in the summertime. You're not going to have tomatoes in the dead of winter. So how are you adjusting seasonally? Because you have to still start those cold season crops likely in the summer so they're ready by the time that some of the stuff starts going out.
Yeah, and again, we're still learning. Every year we're extending and able to provide these things longer. Like last year, I think we had kale. I actually think it went all the way through the year, which was remarkable for us. It wasn't like in abundance, but we were able to pull it off in the dead of summer. But that was using indoor, and it was in one of our structures with a shade cloth on. And so we're learning still some of the techniques, right? There's not a book out there that says, oh, if you live in Zone 8A or Paris, Texas, and you have a hoop house, this is what you need to do, right? And so we're having to figure all these things out. And in reality, it's a lot of the back pressure. I mean, it's trying to supply and meet the demands of the customers, and especially the succession crops where people are expecting things to be there. It's like that provides back pressure for us to be like, oh, what if we try doing something like this? And so we're always, creatively thinking how to do things. And so we'll, like in the summer months, we're still trying to grow lettuces. And so we'll run the overhead sprinkler, which you can kind of see in that picture there on the left, with a shade cloth over that exact structure for 3 minutes every hour. And that just provides just a little bit of relief for those, lettuces. You're like, oh, thank God for a little bit of relief, right, from the Texas sun that's beating down on it. And so we're still learning a lot of those things, but it's tough, to be able to then all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, where's the tomatoes in February? Like we get it right now. It's like
they're in Mexico.
Mexico. Yeah, they're in Mexico. They're on their way up. No, but and that's really the hardest thing for us to respond with is like they're not here yet, and we could probably have them in February, but the reality is we'd have to have extra lighting because tomatoes need 13 hours a day.
You would have to heat that greenhouse.
You have to heat the greenhouse
at such an expense that likely it's not going to be worth it.
We figured it out. It was probably been like around $10 to $15 a pound of tomatoes. And who would buy that? Would you buy that kid for $10 to $15 a pound? He's out. He's out. So, and it doesn't really make sense at some point to do that.
Well, and look, to be fair, you can't buy it because your clients are not going to buy it.
Yeah, right.
You're going to have to pass that cost on.
Right. It's all, what's the value of it? And so we have to find that fine line, and that's what we're pushing, and these structures provide that because we're able to extend things and to make things go longer, and so it's really a balancing act. But the one thing I can tell you, we kind of look forward to a new crop and do as well as customers. I mean, it's like, I bet at least once every week somebody says, "What's coming up? What's next?" And so if you have the same thing every week, day in and day out, and you can grow that same thing every week, it's like, it'll be there next week. But when somebody's like, oh, you got something new, it's like, let's try it. And so it's kind of exciting,
It's also exciting not to have to prune tomatoes 12 months out of the year, isn't it? I like this picture on the right because this is an extreme. Now,
I don't like it at all.
Hold on. So the nice thing for everybody here in this room is that under those covers that have snow on them in that picture is sellable produce that's perfect. And you're able to pull that off because of some of the tools, because of the tenacity. The difference between the picture on the left and the picture on the right is 100 degrees versus 16 degrees, and that's how you're able to produce year round. So this is when was that?
July, I think. It was hot.
Yeah.
It was hot.
So July last year, this was in the back far left. That was a 14-foot cat tunnel, and then a 20-foot cat tunnel that we were fortunate to help put up, and that was after a lot of other improvements to the farm over the years. So what do you have coming up this year?
Well, between those two structures, actually what we want to do is fill that in, all with basically cat tunnels or structures. The difference between growing indoor and outdoor are night and day. I mean, it's just, we can't really do it if we want to. I mean, you could probably even see just by those pictures, well, you can't really see anything that's growing indoor, but you can see how stressed some of those plants are on the left. It's just the more knobs you can control on the environment, the better the produce is going to be. And so we just want to get everything under as much protected culture as possible.
So I put this picture in here for a reason. So the very first time I went to your place years ago, and we've got video footage of it over the years. I tried to find it before this, but I've been a little busy this week. That the tunnel on the very far bottom, that was the only thing that was there other than the house. And you guys would not believe the amount of woods that everything in this picture had a tree on it, except for that tunnel. Yeah. And so over the years, expanding, how many acres?
Oh, well, we're 17 and a half acres, but we farm really only with the orchard. We have an acre and a half of orchard and berries, so there's another acre and a half right there that you're looking at.
But it was such thick woods and underbrush. I mean, you couldn't see 5 feet into the woods, and then still on some of your property you have that right now. So all of this was converted woodland into producing right now. But after hearing everything that you guys have heard, it takes that amount of structures. Just look, we're 25,000 people, 40,000 in the country, or in the county. This is what it takes to feed 1%, maybe.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is.
So that's your 3-bay gutter connect, your propagation tunnel, the Gothic, the 14, and then this was in the middle of building that 20-foot, and then all the outdoor space that you see. And this isn't all of it. There's the berries, there's the peach orchard, there's all the ducks and the geese again. But it's a lot.
Yeah.
And again, before everybody leaves, I want you to take a look at the pictures on the very far right of the studio, and it's kind of our memorial to the Gory greenhouse. It was the first commercial greenhouse in Paris around between 1908 and 1940, and so when those people were in operation, they had no idea that we'd be talking about them now. And then with all the pictures that you have seen and all the podcasts you've been on, all the videos, that it's just building a legacy that your great-grandkids can look back and see what you did. Yeah. And so it's very important to document your progress so others can learn. And so it's just something that I just want everybody to think about, that there's a great story to tell. We are so fortunate that you're basically our R&D and test farm. It's a great partnership for the both of us. And it's nice to have a working farm that we can test equipment out of. We just don't throw stuff out into the marketplace. Oftentimes it's tested for months or a couple of years before it goes out. So all those structures were not there when we first met.
Yeah.
And then we have, obviously Carl is a great talk. He can explain things in a way that's universally understood. He's always up for having a good time, and we sure appreciate it. And one of the most things that I find most enjoyable is you've always showed up when we've asked you to show up. And I always like the notion of farmers being an ambassador for small farming, because we talked a little bit about earlier. If you go to the farmer's market and a farmer's disgruntled and they make a patron have a bad time, that's not good for small farming. Yeah. And so you being able to share your stories and always showing up and collaborating with all the other yahoos that we hang out with, we sure appreciate it. So I'm going to open this up to questions now. I have a few, but Kit, I'm really looking for you to have something here in a second. So I'm going to get, this one's from Annie. Annie's one of our customer service folks in Ohio, and she wants to know how you introduce new crops to a farmer's market.
Welcome to the show, Annie. First-time caller. Fraser here.
Start that now.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was the question? I was too worried about my creative response there.
Relax. How do you introduce, like right there, I love that picture of you.
Yeah, I know.
That was intentional. So, I mean, look, there's a lot of different peppers you have, a lot of different tomatoes, that you're bringing new stuff to market all the time. When somebody comes up and goes, "What's this?"
Oh, yeah.
What's that process like?
We honestly get excited. I mean, we love talking about our produce and our plants, and we sell plants April and May typically, but it's what we do, right? I mean, we grow it, but we also love the questions to be able to teach people about it and maybe even help them learn how to grow it. And so it's typically, a lot of the times we get asked, is it organic? Which we're not certified organic, but we explain that to them. We are working towards that. We just don't actually have the red tape or the certification that says we are.
But that hasn't stopped anybody in this room from supporting you either.
Yeah. And so, but it's also, is it local? That's the biggest question we get asked. Was it grown here? Because a lot of people just bring the stuff in down from the valley or from Florida, wherever it comes in from. And so that's usually where the conversations start around. But then specifically on the varieties, we don't get too many people that nerd out on that. I mean, Kit and maybe a couple other people are like very specific on, is this, do you have this very specific type of variety or something? And so that's where it's kind of fun, because then you're like, oh, you're on the know, right? And then you can nerd out with them a little bit and be like, yeah, I got this seed from here, and here's a history, maybe if it's an heirloom or something. But it's some of it's just, small talk, and some is more in depth. It really depends upon the customer asking. But we like to take them through the journey because to us, it's like the whole story. Like when I go to the bakery, I just know the story behind it, especially if I know, where it's where it's sourced from. There's a story, the food tastes better, I enjoy it. And so that's my goal for them, is to get them an experience. Like we grew this 10 miles from here. We started these seeds back in December 26th, probably. I can tell you the date on those peppers. And that was of 2022 rather. And then we'll tell them the varieties and what they might be able to be using. So I see some small cherry peppers in there as well. And so we'll give examples of how we use them. And one, people think they might be sweet, and we'll say that's spicy, right? And so we'll give them a little bit of and nutritional facts too. So
well, and look, we all know that we are not the cultural epicenter of the culinary world here where we live, and we also don't have a lot of cooks or even home chefs.
Yeah.
So the fact that people are coming up and even knowing what to do with any of this is mind-boggling to me some days.
Mm-hmm. Well, like kohlrabi, that's the one that always gets people are always like, "What in the world did you get this from Mars?" Because it is a funky looking piece of maybe Pluto. That's probably better because it's purple. I don't know. Is purple? Is Pluto purple? Let's pretend it is at least. It's pretty gnarly looking, but and so that's where it's really fun because people will buy it just to try it once, and we'll say, well, this is what we do with it, and that's usually all it is. And I'm the same way. Like Paulie, you make some new roll or something, like, let's try some of that, right? And so we just, because it's something new, somebody gives us a story, they give us a tagline or something that we're drawn to, we're connected with, we want to now enjoy the full experience. So.
All right, one more question from the right, and then we're going to go to the audience.
Yeah.
So buckle up. Are your customers flexible if you can't meet the demand?
Yes, they're very gracious to us. We haven't had any nobody's thrown a tomato at us. Julian, we don't always get to meet his egg demand. This young man goes through 6 dozen eggs a week. How old are you, Julian? Sorry? How old are you? 24 years old, this young man goes through 6 dozen eggs a week sometimes. So, yeah, so sometimes we have to text him like, hey, do you need all 6 dozen? Because he's like 5 minutes before the market ends. Are you gonna need all 6 of those dozens?
Well, you just over there squeezing chickens?
No. It's like, go home real quick, see if a chicken laid one more egg so we can complete this last dozen. No. But we want to meet those demands. That's the thing for us. And we love that because it provides the back pressure for us to be, okay, we got it. We got to meet that need, and we want to do that.
If y'all understood the stress this man has gone through over the years to meet demands and to have more earlier, who's got a question? So the question, so we have it recorded, is what's the importance of sourcing the seeds and making sure that you're picking the right variety, and how are you making some of those decisions? And it's got to be for some feedback as well.
Yeah. And so we have really progressed and matured in that area. At first, we started just going to the local feed store. It's like, oh, squash seeds are squash seeds, because we didn't know what we were doing. It's like that's what we always did for our garden, or we went to Home Depot and bought some seeds, right? And that's not bad, but for us, it wasn't good, especially you didn't know when the germination test date was. And so you start getting into this, and you fail a few times. Like, how come I only got 30% germination? Like, we planted one full tray of the seed, and we were expecting to get 80, 90% of it, and you get 20, 30%. Now you're, like on pepper seeds, that might set you back a month, And so a lot of it's trial and error, and so then you start to realize I can't mess around with this part, at least as a market gardener. Home gardeners, have at it, right? If you're really concerned about organics, then you're going to want to go to a reliable source where you can know for sure that the seed is organic. Some of the seed packets maybe at some of the big box stores might say organic. But if that is really important to you, you need to go to a source. We use True Leaf Market and Johnny Seeds, and they have both. You can literally filter through what kind of seeds you want to select on that. But for us, it's more of the reliability. Like, we need to know when they tested that seed, how now. And this year it bit us. Like, you would think by now we would have this figured out, but we've had seeds for. The germ date, it was like 2021 and 2022. That was the test date. And we planted them this year, and we burnt ourselves so bad, like multiple times on multiple varieties of seeds, they just didn't germinate. And so, like, here we are in late winter now ordering seeds because all our previous seeds.
And good luck if they're available right now. And
plus, then you got to wait for shipping, and so it's a lot of trial and error, and now we know we're not keeping seeds beyond, one season. We just can't do it. For us, it's not worth it. We have too much of a reliability on good quality seeds. And it's not that those companies, because we got those seeds from Johnny's and True Leaf, it's not that the seeds were bad. It's that we tolerated we went beyond the, standard length of time to get those things.
It's meant to be used
Shelf
within
life.
the season.
Right. Yeah. Or 2 seasons.
Do you have a backup plan for crop failure or crop loss?
Yeah, we overplant, and because we do. I mean, because we're organic, we know that we're going to lose at least 10% to critters and weeds and things like that. And so we overplant. And backup plan is just for example, like right now, it's like our spinach is failing. I've been struggling with spinach, and so it's like I will take care of the bed that we have. So like if one bed fails, and I will do everything I can. I will go cultivate that thing. I will pray over that bed. I will go manicure it, and I will feed it every other day, right? And I'll pick the bugs off my hands to make sure that bed will get up to speed as fast as possible. So there's a little bit of that, and I'm dead serious and all that. Like serious is like that bed is like you've got to do everything you do to make that bed thrive.
Right.
So.
I believe this is from Emily, who's customer service out of California. What is your favorite crop to grow?
It is not weed.
Grow.
The tomatoes probably. I think they all have something unique about them.
Is that your favorite crop?
Yeah.
The tomatoes and all the labor involved? Yes.
Yeah. So Kathy says tomato. It's a lot of work, but tomatoes is it. But they all have their unique character. I mean, like okra, like most people would say, that's lame, but they're the cousin of a geranium.
It's itchy is what it is.
Geranium. Hibiscus, thank you. And so they've got these flowers that are just beautiful. I mean, like, I'm not kidding you, like 3-4 inch flowers, probably more like 3 inches. And then if you get the burgundy okra, people won't buy the fruit, but the plant is so beautiful. And the flowers are this cream color with the dark maroon inside, and so I like growing okra too, but it's not like my favorite. But it's really high up there. So they all have their own, preference, but I'd probably say tomatoes.
What crop do you never want to grow again?
Well, I don't want to shame our customers here or shy away our customers, but squash and zucchini, only because we deal with squash bugs relentlessly starting in about 3 weeks from now. So I hate those squash bugs, man. If y'all have never met a squash bug, come on over. If you just want to see what hell looks like. You can, yeah.
Last chance for questions? Yes.
No, you go. No, you go. No, you go.
Somebody go.
That is a really good question. It's gonna be just for you, Paulie.
So just for the recording, how do you arrive at the price point that you're selling at?
And that is a really good question, and we struggle. What were we just chatting about? Oh, this morning, and it causes us like contention, right, between us. Usually, I'm higher, she's lower, and she's lower, and I'm higher. And so, like this morning, we were trying to figure out what we should.
Always default to the higher.
Yeah, well, and so, and it depends upon the time of year. Like last week was the first time we brought spring onions, right? So not a green onion, but a spring onion, a small bulb onion. And we sold 3 or 4 of those little things for a little more. I think it was like $4 a thing. And today we're like, well, I think that's too high. And I'm like, babe, we're the only people that have these things right now. Like, I don't care if it's $1 a piece, and I wasn't being that brash with it, but I'm like, we put these things in November, like we're, and nobody else has these things. I don't think it would be a problem. So a lot of it's just Kathy and I like going back and forth. Like, what will somebody buy it for? We've asked you, how many times have we asked you, Paulie, what would you pay for this? Like, we don't know. Kit, same thing. I'm like, dude, you got to tell me. Like, I don't really know. Like, we're in Paris, Texas. So, but if we're just like generally putting prices on, can you see? Yeah, you can see our price tag on that thing. I'll go to Central Market. I'll go to Whole Foods.
But that's not comparing apples to apples.
No, it's not, but at least it gives me a base. And typically we'll like see something like that, and we might just times it times 2. Like, because we don't know.
Okay, and so this statement is for you. Has anybody here ever had a problem with how much he was charging?
Yeah.
It's important to hear.
Right. Well, there's a lady there that she looked. Sayla didn't know how to respond last week. Our daughter Sayla, she's 15 and sweet little gal. And I was at the plant table. Otherwise, I would have had a better response for her. But she came over. She's like, this girl came over. She said, "How much for the carrots?" She said, $4. She goes, "Oh, $4 for those carrots." I'm like, well, what'd you say? I didn't say anything, Dad. I'm like, you should have come and got me.
Somebody's going to give you $4. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
So I want to educate them. That's the only thing. And sometimes when we hear that, we're like, just take this. And 9 times out of 10, they come back and they'll buy it because they're like, oh, they get it. That's what a real carrot tastes like, And so it is tough though. We don't ever, and I think a lot of our stuff, Paris is probably priced all right, but if we were in California, well, maybe California's not right, but Dallas or somewhere, we're way, way under, probably 30, 40% under, but we love selling out. That's the main thing. And so we kind of judge it. It's all thumb in the air. We ask literally our customers. We don't mind if somebody says, "Hey, I would buy this, but it's just come down." It's fine. Because we're seriously guessing and trying to figure it out. And at the same time, making sure that we're not going backwards because it's not a profit. It's not a huge profitable business. We're not doing this right to get wealthy at it. It's just a
we're not
lifestyle.
paying you for this.
No, yeah.
Kit. So the question is, what are the crops that you wish you can grow that you can't? Maybe they're a little more tropical. Maybe they need a little bit more cold.
Yeah.
What specifically in this area is giving you trouble that you wish you could grow?
Mm-hmm. And some of that to answer is it really depends on what it is. Like cauliflower, we really love to grow. This year we tried doing cauliflowerettes, kind of like a broccolini, but a cauliflower version of that. And I'm like, this is going to do so well, to the market, but I couldn't get it to grow. And it's some of it's our soil. Like we're still learning. Like I think that we'll be able to grow cauliflower, and we should be able to grow cauliflower. Whether or not we can sell it, that's another thing, because we grew it for a while, and I think you were probably one of the only people that would buy it. We'd get, especially when it's purple, people are like, "Why is your cauliflower purple?" I'm like, because I don't have the patience to go out and put a rubber band on every single, if y'all don't know this cauliflower, you have to fold the leaves up over it. As soon as you see the head come up, you've got to take the leaves and cover it so the sun doesn't see it, and then put a rubber band over it. If you got 1,000 plants out there, you got 1,000 rubber bands that you got to go out. And then on top of that, then if you want to go spray, then you have to go take 1,000 rubber bands off, spray it, protect it from the weeds, and then go put a rubber band back on it. So that's one reason why we don't grow a lot of it, because people don't like to buy it. And so we just let it grow naturally, which is then the head turns purple, and then people don't want to buy a purple cauliflower. So that's some of it. So it's a lot of challenge. Some of it is just our immaturity. Like spinach, we should be able to grow spinach. Like some of the stuff is just our bugs, it's our soil pH. Our amendments, some of our amendments will then increase the pH in our soil. And it's like, I don't just have a meter I can put in the ground. I have to literally take a sample of that soil at that specific moment, send it off to the lab, and then I have to get the results back. And so I just spent $25 on one soil for a bed that we've got, I don't know how many beds we have, 150 beds maybe. And then I have to adjust it. So I have to go put sulfur maybe down to, lower the pH down. But that takes 3 months for it to lower, So then I don't even get to, so it's like once a year I might be able to improve our beets. That's the one thing for me. We've been doing this 4 years. Our beets should be the size of my head. We should really have these ginormous beets.
That's a big beet.
And they come out like this. And we're struggling, but I know it's our soil. And it's just a lot of immaturities in us. At the end of the day, most of it is our immaturities. Some of it's climate. Texas is good for some of the cold weather, but then if we get a really nasty cold snap, then the brassicas, they'll die out if they're not protected. And so then it's we have to make the decision, do we want to put cauliflower in a greenhouse? Because that's prime real estate. That's
So I have to talk about this a lot. So if he were to grow cauliflower, in the time it would take to grow cauliflower, he probably could have grown in that same space multiple runs of lettuce that he could have charged more, 4 or 5 times more, 3 or 4 times in the same space.
Yeah. But we still are doing that. We still want to do that. Most of the brassicas, especially Brussels, we ourselves love Brussels sprouts. And I put them I have them in the ground right now. But you know what? Well, I've been catering those things. When do we put those in? January? And I'm not kidding you, they might be 2 inches tall. They might be 2 inches tall because they're outdoor crop, and they are just getting pummeled by the weather, the rain. You know, we just got, what, 3 inches of rain? And those things, they were finally sprouting up, and now they're back down to 0 inches, and now they're starting to come back up. And so, yeah, that's that way for us. Like, sweet corn is like one of my favorite crop to grow. It's on our logo, right? And my wife makes fun of me. It reminds us of Secondhand Lions. Y'all see that Secondhand Lions show? It's a really good show, yeah. Remember, so the sales guys, they always come up, and they're like, they're trying to sell stuff to him, and this vegetable. Finally, one guy was able to get through to sell him stuff, and it was all these seeds for their gardens, and they're rich old rednecks that didn't know what to do with all their money. So everybody was trying to solicit them, and they'd always run them off with shotguns. Anyways, this one guy was able to sell them seeds, and they finally got their garden planted, and they were all walking by, and they were like, and it said all the, you know, it had the labels, what each plant was. Yeah, tomatoes, beans, corn, and then the one guy finally realized, he says, that's corn, 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 corn. So every single row was corn. And so that's what my wife tells me all the time. It's like, corn, 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 corn. I just want to go back. The point is every time we cut open an ear of corn, there's an earworm sitting there waiting for us. And it's like, no matter what we do, I mean, I will spray them with our stuff, which is, again, our organic. This apparently doesn't work. But and we just have to deal with it. So we, you know, that's why our cobs are about 4 inches long. We make them look pretty, but the reason why they look pretty is because we cut the ends off to hide the bug damage from them. So yeah, which takes in more work, and we lose a lot of produce from it. But
Do we have any other questions? All right. So I think that's going to about round it up. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for always welcoming to your home. Thank you for being so open, not only here. If you guys want to hear more, I mean, there's, I don't know how many podcasts we've done at this point that's on our YouTube channel. But thanks very much for coming. This is a big deal for us. The ability to do this live, the ability to do this in our hometown of Paris, and to share this with you. And I hope you come back. So
thank
you all very, very much. Never had claps before. So.